to a girls' trip in Alabama.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. So I'm here today to talk about The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Season 15, Episode 4, The Buck Stops in Birmingham. So be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let's jump right on into it. So first and foremost, Marlo Hampton is public enemy number one, basically, among all viewers. Freaking Drew, who was not even in this episode, dragged Marlo on Twitter. Kenya did as well. Who else? Monyetta did, and Marlo Monyetta actually got into it a little bit. I think Kandi also said something about Marlo, and Kandi was also not even in this episode. So it was like everyone had something to say about Marlo. Although Marlo does have some allies, you know. She has Shereé, Courtney, and kinda sorta Sanya. Sanya's kind of known as a flip-flopper, so she's kind of in between, you know what I mean? But Shereé is the only really one who is aligned with Marlo and who's a full-timer. But everyone's kind of well, Sheree's not gonna come through. We've seen how Shereé flops time and time again. Basically, they're kind of just seeing Marlo just wild out. Kenya referred to her as a rotten peach, or she got a leftover peach. Monyetta says something called a canned peach, and they're going back and forth. It was just this big old thing. But the actual episode begins with Kenya and Monyetta. They're at the little dance studio and they're rehearsing their choreography for the Magic City Classic. Kenya's gonna be doing a collaboration with the university's band, and it's a homage to the Kenya More hair care, kind of to that thing. And she's hoping I'll do great things for her brand. Roi, he then FaceTimes Monyetta, because Roi and Monyetta are really good friends. And he asks Kenya about how the process is going. And now remember, Roi and Kenya, I don't think they're official at this point in the show, but they're kind of getting to that point. So I believe Kenya was saying she's kind of dating around a little bit, but she's really taking a liking to Roi. I believe he's Israeli. I think he's a businessman. So yeah, Kenya's speaking on how Roy's just been really awesome and how he really has her attention, and how her divorce is still going on. So she's really just gonna put herself out there even though it's not finalized yet. And regarding the trip, Kenya says that she just really doesn't want to tell the girls about the performance because she just wants to surprise them and just really gag them. So she's kind of keeping that little secret. She's keeping a lot of the trip a little secret. She's kind of basically telling the girls, all right, bitch, we're going to Birmingham. Not really telling them specifically what they're doing. We then see Sanya. She's at home with her mom and her sister, and she calls her brother-in-law to kind of just check in up with him. He's out running some errands for her. He still has a bunch of shit to do. They're kind of going over some stuff, and she makes a comment about how oh, there are a lot of things on my list that are missing check marks. We have a lot of stuff to do. And we see her sister, Shari. I think it's Sherry or Shari. She calls her by her nickname, so I don't really hear how to pronounce it. I think it's Shari. But yeah, so talking about that, and Shari's just rolling her eyes and shit. And Sanya said that there's some really blurred lines between work and family. And I was just talking about this with New Jersey, but it's the whole, oh, I'm gonna work with my uncle, I'm working with my family friend, we're working together with my homie. That does not work most of the fucking time. To be very honest with you, especially the whole working with family. I'm very much of the, don't do business with family kind of mentality. Just because, it's just unnecessary bullshit. Sanya then casually tells Shari that Ross is ready for the household to just be, a Ross household again. Just kind of have everyone go their separate ways and whatnot. And Shari feels some type of way about this. She's oh. And she's clearly upset, but it's you were just talking about how you can't stand being around Sanya all this time, about how, it's really weird to, be working for her and living with her, blah, blah, blah. And Sanya's whole thing is all right, well, it's been a year, so what's up? But the response to that is, well, you said it was 1 to 2 years. So, but it's also well, Ross doesn't think they have to leave, tomorrow. It could be all right, leave in, a couple months. You know what I mean? So it's I don't know. And it's also, are they paying rent of some sort? I know that they help out a lot. I'm assuming they're not paying rent. Or if they are, I'm sure it's minimal. But that's beside the point. But it's have they not been stacking their bread and saving up? Sanya mentioned that her brother-in-law was trying to get into real estate. Did that just crash and burn? And was he just like not like, was he unemployed for a little bit and actually took her, like, why aren't they able to just branch off and do their own thing? And yeah, they may need to fucking, like, why don't they move back to fucking Texas? Sanya's parents are talking about how they love Florida. Why don't they all fucking, except Sanya and Ross and Deuce, of course, why don't they all fucking move down to Florida and do their own little family thing? Like, I don't know. I'm just kind of like, because remember, Sanya's sister was just talking shit about, like, being there. And now she's all upset because Sanya's, like, in her mind, kicking them out, essentially. And in the confessional, Shari and her mom, they call Sanya self-centered, and they basically say that them being there allows her and Ross to really do their own thing and do what they have to do, which I do have to kind of point out, because Ross is always going back to Austin to like handle their business and shit like that. And Sanya, she's just talking about how she has to like fly to different places, do some reporting and shit like that. She has some Mommy Nation stuff, some different Nike shit. Like, she's been pretty busy as well. She's not a competing athlete anymore, but she's still kind of on her grind, doing her damn thing. So it's kind of like, I see what they're saying about like how like, well, girl, like, basically they feel like unappreciated, I guess. Like, Sanya's acting like they don't do a lot for her. I'm not sure, but like, and I kind of get both sides, but at the end of the day, it's like, look, you've been there for a fucking year. You should have been stacking your bread. Figure it out, girl. Like, if you have to move to a cheaper zip code, like, do it. Like, I don't know. When I see Marlo, she's having her annual Halloween shoot with Michael and William. They're doing that. And her sister, Crystal, she's there too. And Crystal's the one who Marlo sent the boys to live with last year. Marlo then brings up trying to get her record expunged so she can legally own a gun again. And she says that Courtney is actually helping her out with that. And she's like, oh my gosh, I love Courtney. She's helping me out. Like, because Marlo, she can't own a gun because of one of her past felonies against her. She did like over 20 plus years ago. One of the old things she got in trouble for. But since that break-in happened, she's like, I don't feel safe. I feel like I need to own a gun. Like, so she wants to get her record expunged, or at least that one portion that like doesn't allow her to legally own a firearm. So yeah, and Marlo also mentions that like, oh, Kandi, Miss Worldwide, you know, she never helped me get my record expunged. And it's like, why the fuck does Kandi have to help you get your record expunged? Have you even brought this up to Kandi? And why would you bring this up to Kandi? She has enough shit going on. Like, this is some fucking Kim Kardashian shit. Like, why don't you reach out to Kim? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It was just kind of weird. But yeah, and I guess Courtney just had the connections, helped Marlo out. Although I don't even know, has Marlo ever even like, because remember she said the whole, like, the catalyst for this is the break-in, which happened like last season I think it happened between the reunion and like the finale, like when it was taped. So has she even like gone about trying to do it? Like, I'm just like confused with Marlo's statement, because you know what I mean? Like, I don't think this has been a party for Marlo before this, so I don't know, man. Courtney then pops in, and Marlo gives Crystal like a rundown about the situation between her and Drew from the other night. And, you know, although this involved Drew, it really stems from Kandi, according to Marlo. So Marlo is saying that she was just really hurt because her nephew Quentin, he was so proud to be a chef, and the dude who killed him, he actually met him at OLG. So Marlo was kind of like, look, although Quentin wasn't working for Kandi when he passed away, the fact that she didn't like send any flowers to the funeral, didn't reach out, didn't blah, 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 it's really hurtful. And Marlo said she's been like stewing on this for like a few years. Like, she's been upset about this for a minute. And Marlo ultimately just wants Kandi to be held accountable. And she's like, now why do shootings keep happening at Kandi's restaurants? We have to know. What is it? Like, is it a lack of security? And Courtney's like, or is it the culture that she creates? And I'm like, are you bitches really gonna sit here and act like it isn't like something, like an issue throughout the entire nation? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, the whole, especially Courtney with the fucking, or is it the culture that Kandi creates? Like, bitch, what the fuck? Like, creates, not even like that's such an active word. You know what I mean? It was like the culture she creates. Like, not even like the culture she like allows, the culture that she like the creates. Like, I don't know. I mean, maybe just like semantics, but like girl, what? Like, are you blaming Kandi for, like, gun violence in Atlanta? Like, what the fuck? I don't know. It was really fucking weird. I was like, as, like, a grown-ass person, I just expect, like, you know, I don't know, man. I was like, what? Marlo adds that her whole family's upset at Kandi. We see Crystal tearing up because Crystal and Quentin, like, were raised together, basically, and, Marlo says that Kandi's selfish. Courtney says that Kandi seems to lack empathy. Yada, yada, yada. We see a quick scene of Shereé going to the OBGYN to see what's up with her fibroids. The doctor discusses Shereé's options. She's like, look, in the past, they do like a whole hysterectomy, take your stuff out, but now we can do like, we can shrink the fibroids, like maybe even remove them if you want, but we could, you know what I mean? Like there are different options. Shrinking the fibroids, Shereé would only be down for like 2 to 3 weeks or something like that, and then she could start like working out, having sex again. But if she were to like get a hysterectomy or actually remove the fibroids, it would be more finite because if you shrink them, they could come back. But if she were to do that more serious surgery, she'd be out for like 6 to 8 weeks. And Shereé's like, working out and sex are like my 2 favorite things. Like I can't go along without it. And she's like, have you seen Martell? He has big dick energy. And we see that scene of him changing from episode 1. It was like, production was having a field day. They knew they were going to have fun with that when they were recording it, I'm telling you. And yeah, we then see Sanya. She's having a little family photo shoot. Shari was supposed to come do her hair, but she's sick. But Sanya's calling bullshit. She's like, she might be sick of me, but she's not sick. She's kind of saying that. And she mentions her brother-in-law actually quitting. And Sanya, she's talking about how, like, this whole thing has put some strain on her and her sister's relationship. Sanya then gets emotional, and she's like, look, I've been so successful, and I've always wanted to spread the love to my family. And she's like, and I brought everyone from Austin to Atlanta so we can grow together and really build and, like, be at our full potential. And she feels like it's just not appreciated. And she says she's just really over working with family, and her mom jokingly agrees. And it's like, again, like the whole working with family shit, like just does not work out a lot of the time. Like it just does not work. The ladies are then packing for Birmingham. Kenya, she's hoping to fly out by 10:15 a.m. and she's having everyone meet up at Shereé's. It's only like a block away from her place, and yeah, it's just easier, I guess. Everyone's late. Marlo arrives at 10:37 a.m. So it's like not super late, especially like all things considered. But yeah, everyone's late. There's no Drew or no Kandi. Kandi had another commitment, and Drew is just sick. And Kenya and Marlo are also sick. They're like hacking up a fucking storm on the bus and shit, but Drew was like extra sick. I was like, no bitch, I can't go. So we're 2 castmates down, and Kenya's pretty bummed about this. She's like, Kandi's my girl. She's my ride or die. And so Kenya's like she's not really feeling not having Kandi there. On the way to Birmingham, again, Kenya and Marlo are coughing up a storm. Kenya reveals that like they're gonna be going to a little dance class once they get there, and then they're gonna eat. Then they're gonna go to a charity event. And this is a surprise to all the ladies. They're like, girl, I didn't pack any fucking charity clothes, blah, blah, blah. But Kenya's like, just make it work. Which is funny because later on, we see Kenya tell Monyetta shit because she comes out in this like metallic romper kind of thing, and Kenya's like, we're going to a charity event, not a strip club. That is not appropriate. And yeah, Marlo responds by being like, I thought this was a girls trip to Alabama. I didn't know it'd be classy. But yeah, they're making it work.
I thought this was girls trip to Alabama.
Sanya then randomly brings up like how one of Future's baby mamas brought up how he got his ass eaten or some shit like that. Shereé's then like, oh, I wouldn't know what to do. And she asks Kenya, oh, what did you pull when you did it? And everyone's like, what? Like, Kenya, you were eating ass? And Kenya's like, I think it was when I was in my 20s. And Sanya's like, Miss USA was out here eating ass? And Shereé's like, I didn't even know ass eating was in back then. So I was kind of joking about that. Kenya's like, Shereé, that's supposed to be between us girls. And again, Shereé's kind of shitty for bringing that up. It was like, but you can't trust Shereé. You can't trust Shereé for shit. Ladies then arrive at Birmingham. They head to the dance class. They kind of go over the different majorette styles, stuff like that. Kenya and Monyetta, so they're going to judge, and they're going to have like a buck-off between the ladies. Marlo feels some type of way because she's like, oh, Kenya and her emotional support friend, they're doing their own thing. and making us do the dancing. I thought this was a group activity, blah, blah, blah. Just kind of picking at Kenya's trip, just starting that whole trend. Shereé, she's named the winner of the Buck Off, and she secures the larger room. The ladies then go out to eat, and Courtney's baby daddy, who she said it's complicated with, he then FaceTimes her. And it's like, you're not with this guy. You were dating him on and off for like 20 years. You have a 24-year-old daughter together. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like that is so embarrassing at that point. It's like, look, are you gonna get married? Are you gonna like be in an open relationship? Are you just gonna separate? Like what is going on? Like, I don't know, because he FaceTimes her and he's like, oh, when are you gonna be home? And it's like, so I don't know. It's very weird. I don't know what's going on. And again, they're like, oh, you know, he's my baby daddy. We co-parent. You have a fucking 24-year-old. What do you mean you co-parent? Like, oh my gosh. Well, on the subject of Courtney's man, or it's complicated, dude, you know, whatever. Kenya brings up that she actually did a movie with him as well. So both Drew and Kenya both did movies with him. The producer asked Kenya, oh, like, did you ever date Bryce? And Kenya's like, he was a beautiful man in the 90s, but I'm gonna leave it at that. Emphasis on in the 90s. They then segue to discussing how Marlo and Drew got into it, and Kenya says something about how, like, oh, Marlo was really mad at Drew, blah, blah, blah. But then Marlo gets all defensive, and she starts talking over Kenya. She's like, oh, you weren't even there, Kenya. How are you going to say what happened when you weren't there? Blah, blah, blah. And Kenya's like, why are you speaking over me? Like, just chill. And Marlo's like, who are you to not speak over? I can speak over you if I want to, blah, blah, blah. Just really being dumb, like, just arguing for the sake of arguing, saying shit just to say shit. Kenya says that Drew said that Marlo was standing over her and being very aggressive, which Marlo denies. I don't think Marlo was standing over Drew. In fact, Marlo was sitting for most of the conversation. And she was keeping her cool for a minute, although she was kind of making a stupid argument while keeping her cool, you know what I mean? At the very end, she was like, oh, my nephew's dead, you bitch! Like, that could be construed as being aggressive. And the way she kind of, like, did that, it could be kind of being over. Because Drew's pretty short, Marlo's tall, you know, but... Anyway, yeah, so there's some disagreement about whether Marlo was being aggressive, whether she was standing over Drew. But whatever, so Kenya's just relaying his information. Marlo just kind of keeps pushing back, being dumb. Sanya and Shereé are tipsy, by the way. It's kind of on one. And then ladies just head to the hotel at that point. There's no real resolution between Marlo and Kenya. Kenya's just basically like, look, if you're going to be stupid by yourself. Shereé calls Kenya the hostess with the least because she's upset because she doesn't have a suite. And I don't know, because Shereé's room did kind of look pretty regular. But it's like, well, was it a little bit bigger than the other ladies' rooms? You know what I mean? Like, because that's all Kenya promised Shereé. She was like, you get the bigger room. She didn't say you get the suite. You get the fucking... It wasn't any of that shit. It was the larger room. And Marlo's also underwhelmed because there's no gift or anything to greet them. There's just this little tiny bottle of some cheap champagne. So Marlo's complaining about that. And she compares it to her trip to Blue Ridge and all that shit. Brooklyn and her nanny then arrive before Kenya rolls out to the charity event, which, again, Monyetta is not dressed appropriately for, at least according to Kenya. She rolls out with just Courtney and Shereé because everyone else is a little bit late. Monyetta arrives at the exact same time as they do, though, although Marlo and Sanya are kind of lagging a bit further behind. And on the way there, Kenya's all hyping the event up, talking about the dress code, all that shit. But when they get there, it's a total flop. There's actually some fool there in, like, a Bass Pro Club fucking hat and some, like, denim jeans and shit. Just totally not super extra. Shereé actually tells Monyetta, girl, you could have kept your booty shorts on. Some dude asked Shereé for a hug. Where my hug at? Like, literally. She's like, did we get dropped off at the wrong event? Like, this could not be what Kenya was talking about. Sanya and Marlo arrive at 8:45, and Sanya's like, all that hoopla for this? And Marlo, when she goes to the bar, she's like, oh, can you send over a bottle of whatever with, like, some sparklers and shit? So she does that. Then ladies all go upstairs, and production pulls Kenya aside. And she's like, oh, this is a shit party, and they don't really want y'all here anymore. They're mad because you're a distraction. And she brings up, like, all the lights and how, like, all the party goers want to take pictures with them and the sparklers. And so Kenya's like, so it's mainly production's fault. And Marlo's for saying the sparklers, but yeah, you know what I mean? There are all kinds of people taking pictures with the housewives. Because the ladies didn't know they were going to attend this charity event, I'm sure there was like no advertising, like, oh, the Real Housewives of Atlanta will all be here. You know what I mean? So everyone's kind of caught off guard, trying to take pictures with them. It was this big old thing. So yeah, they basically got kicked out. Kenya lets ladies know, and Marlo calls it karma. They all head back to the hotel before 9:30. And Kenya, she goes to bed while the others kind of hang out. And I'm like, why didn't they, like, go out somewhere? But I'm like, well, they don't have reservations anywhere. And, like, you know what I mean? They might as well just go back to the hotel, basically. But, yeah, they're all there. And they were all they got kicked out, like, as they were just starting to, like, kind of have fun. You know what I mean? It was kind of shitty. But, yeah, and Marlo says that Kenya, she just left early in Charleston as well. And in Blue Ridge. And she's like, summer's over. Winter's coming. And Summer is Kenya's middle name, so it's like, is that what she's talking about? But yeah, so it's kind of like, man, fuck Kenya, like, why is she leaving early, blah, blah, blah. And Shereé says, let's all go to a room. And they all go. Now keep this in mind, Shereé's the one who recommends they all go up to the room. They then get there, and Shereé knocks first. She kind of knocks normally. Marlo, she then like, oh, she might be asleep, but I could try to get a key from the front desk. Then she goes over and starts kicking the door, like banging on it with her foot. Shereé then does the same thing, but before Sanya goes and knocks normally. Marlo also knocks again at that point, and then Kenya opens the door and she's like, what the fuck's wrong with you? My child's in here, what's wrong with you? And she kind of tries to shoo them all away, but Marlo keeps like banging on the door and shit. And to the point where Kenya says something like, I'm gonna call the police, blah, blah, blah. And again, I don't know if ladies knew that Kenya had Brooklyn there when they first headed down there, but Marlo did know, but she did it the second time. So, I don't know, Marlo was even saying like, oh, like, put Brooklyn in another room and so we can all hang out, like some shit like that. And then it's to be continued. And next episode, we see Marlo versus Monyetta. Kenya, she sends half the group home. She basically says that, like, anyone not in her core group of friends, she'd like to just head out. She's mainly referring to Marlo and Courtney, I believe. But again, Shereé had a big role in that. She's the one who recommended they go to the room. She's the one who started knocking first. She also kicked the door. Shereé's just as bad. Marlo's a bit more egregious with it, but Shereé's the one who lets shit going. She kind of kicks it into gear. We'll see Shereé and Drew get some beef stemming from like some comments from the reunion or some shit. And then we see Kenya have a little medical moment where they have to call an ambulance. Very much giving Leah from Ultimate Girls Trip 3. But anyways, that's it for this episode. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more. Thanks again. Bye.